Is crack-a-lacking, you guys? I'm back with another story. The next chapter in this series. So, I think I last left off talking about how we entered the foster care system. And at this stage, I am 8 years old. Haven't been in the United States very long. I'm not even thinking in English yet. All of my thoughts are in Korean. Korean is my first language. So it's a bit of a culture shock as well that all these things are happening once we get to the States, because American life was very different to me than Korean life. The biggest difference was not being able to access the food. We're in foster care. I was in Somerville, Massachusetts, and my sister was in Wilmington, Massachusetts. Somerville and Wilmington are about, I want to say, 40 minutes drive apart from each other, somewhere in that range. And there was a point where my foster families had figured out how to get in touch with one another so that we could establish some sort of communication between me and my sister, because both of us were very traumatized that we were separated. I actually started having like a nervous breakdown in my mind because my sister was losing her language. She was not answering me back in Korean when I was talking to her on the phone. She was only speaking English to me, and this actually alarmed me. That was our bond. Like, our language was what kept us. That was us. You know what I'm saying? When I heard her speaking back in English, I was thinking, like, is someone hovering over her while she's talking to me, not letting her speak Korean? Like, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? And I remember asking her, like, why aren't you speaking Korean? And she kept saying, like, I don't really understand everything. Or I forgot how to say that. Like, she was losing it. That really scared me a lot. Like, I felt heartbroken. Like, somebody literally, like, told me, like, my best friend died. That's how I felt. If you don't have your language, what do you have? That was our connection to my mom's side of the family and our whole life in Korea before we came to America. And I do want to clarify that I talked about domestic violence in my household with my mom and dad, going all the way back to when we were in Korea and my memories of that. But I want you guys to be very aware that that was not our whole life. Like, in Korea, yes, they fought, but a lot of it was behind closed doors. Like, we knew they were fighting, but we didn't witness a lot of that stuff because we spent so much time at our grandmom's house. There was peace at my grandmom's house. My grandmother was not a dramatic lady. Like, she didn't like arguing and fighting with people. She was a very strong-willed person, but in our household, it was my grandma, my grandfather, and then my mom had 4 younger sisters and a younger brother. So my uncle, he didn't live there, but his sons would come to the house. All us kids, like, the headquarters was my grandmom's house, so we would all be there because my aunts would babysit us. They were like our nannies. The aunts weren't married with kids, so they had a lot of time to spend rearing us, and we were having a blast at my grandmom's. Like, the bulk of my memories of childhood are at my grandmom's house in Korea. And I know it's insane because I know we lived at home with my parents because we went to school on the army base and the bus would come and pick us up at our house. But I don't have many memories of being home with my family, other than me and my sister bickering and fighting with each other all the time. Like, we were waiting all week to go to my grandmom's. Like, it was just like, get through the week so you can hurry up and go to grandmom's house. Like, we loved our grandmother's house. Don't think that our childhood was just full of treachery and I'm over here reminiscing like, oh, I wish we were back in Korea where all the fighting was happening. Wish we were back around my crazy dad. Like, that's not what it was. We were in a very happy environment in Korea. There was always something to do. Korea itself was just like my habitat. We had so much fun. Like, we would go outside and play all the time. My grandmom's yard, like, we just took over her whole yard. She had like a playground in her yard. My grandmom was like, people in our village thought she was rich. I don't know if she really was, but she was wealthy enough to like afford things that other people couldn't. That was how we connected with what we had came from to this downward spiral living in America. Probably that's why I always felt like I didn't want to be here. Like, I always felt like, why did we come to America? Like, as far as I can think of, everything went bad after we came here, even though we came here probably for some better life or whatever nonsense people tell themselves America's good for. But from ever since I stepped foot here, like, I never was impressed by anything I saw. I was just like, this shit is gross. Like, America's nasty. People are horrible. Everyone's stupid. Like, no, what the hell is the point? Why did we come here? I don't think I ever stopped feeling that way. The traumas didn't help me to not feel that way. Yeah, so I was devastated that my sister was losing our language. And that made me more feel like I need to be around my sister because she has no one to speak our language with. She's really forgetting it. Like, she's not herself. I think it was just because she was younger and she was so shocked by all the changes in her environment that I think my sister is like what I call a chameleon. If she's around people, she will figure out what those people want to hear and see, and she'll adjust her behavior to fit in with them. As I think it's a way that she protects herself in certain environments that she's uncomfortable in, but she'll figure out how to fit right in. And I was not really able to do that. I would just kind of watch my sister, who was my security blanket, and hide behind her, and people just assume that because she was doing something or thinking something or saying something that I agreed that I was like her, so they would just accept me as part of the group. But I really wasn't. Even though I was like quirky and like had my own way and my own style, because my sister supported it and she never acted like what I was doing was weird around other people, I think they just went along with her assessment of me. Like, if she thinks her sister's cool, then she must be cool. So that's how I got through a lot of my social interactions, having Asperger's as a kid, because my sister helped accidentally. Like, I don't think she meant to, but none of us knew that I had Asperger's back then. They just thought that I was like this quirky person. There was a kid that was in my sister's foster family that left. He got adopted and he left out of the foster care system, and that opened space in their family for someone else to come along. So I think our caseworker Becky set it up so that I could be moved to her family, which may not seem like that big of a deal. It was like, duh, they're siblings, why wouldn't they be in the same family? But actually there was a lot of controversy over it, because in foster care, the families choose not to accept any children that are older than their biological oldest child in the house for authority reasons. They don't want these strange kids coming into their families and then lording over their own kids. And because most kids that are in foster care come from very dysfunctional households, it's not the kid that is the problem. So again, let's get these stereotypes out of our minds. The kid is not the problem. Their parents, the people who are caring for them, is the problem. These children growing up in that kind of unsafe environment sometimes accidentally just pick up behaviors, and sometimes they lash out at the family members in the foster care system because they don't know what else to do. Like how I did when I grabbed that knife because I was pissed off at that lady. I didn't know what I was going to do, but like I knew I wasn't going to hurt myself, you know, but I think I just wanted to feel powerful in that moment because there's nothing I could do. I was 8 years old. So sometimes these kids will do things like that. So if the older the kid is, the more influence they might have over the biological children of the family. And so it's easier to control the children when your kid is the oldest kid in the house, and like the family can kind of feel reassured that they're not going to get influenced by these children. And even if their younger siblings might, because they're the oldest kid, they can kind of protect their siblings when the adults aren't around. It was controversial because I was older than their oldest child in that family. So they had to break their usual protocol to accept me and hope that I wasn't going to be this bad influence that was going to turn their children into wild kids. These families were like devout Christians, so there was a lot of church going at that time. I came from a Jehovah's Witness background, but I didn't really like believe in it. I just knew what it was. That family, wow. Overall, they were good people. Overall, I think they had good intentions. At the time, the wife was pregnant with a baby. Also, let me note that these are white families, okay? So we already don't fit in because we don't look like these people. But the first family I was with, they were really awesome. That family in Somerville, they were really good to me. And there were other foster kids in that family too. that were like problem kids, but they were good to us. So I don't know whatever happened to those kids. When I went to my sister's foster family, I felt really weird. Like, I was happy to have my sister back with me, but there was this constant struggle of power with their oldest daughter. She was hell-bent on like letting me know that she was like the head bitch in charge. What a bunch of hypocrites. Like, I felt like these guys go to church and they act like they're so into Jesus, and their family was so strict they wouldn't let us dance, they would not let us like play secular music, they wouldn't let us watch TV unless it was some kind of Christian show. The closest we came to watching non-Christian shows was like Little Women and Little House on the Prairie. So, you know, the Wrath of God movie, like it was stuff like that. I'm still in 3rd grade at this time. I had to go to a new school. I remember my teacher's name. Her name was Miss O'Keefe. Loved her. She was like one of my favorite teachers. She was young. She was really sweet. I think she knew I was a foster kid. You could see our house across the street from my classroom. So I would look out the window and be like, oh, look, there's my foster mom, you know? And I don't know if the other kids knew what foster care was. It was like a relief to go to school. There was a woman who worked in the office. I think she was a secretary maybe, or she could have been a guidance counselor, but I'm not sure if she was, because it was an elementary school, and I don't know if guidance counselors was like a thing back then in elementary schools, but I do remember that she had told me if I ever felt overwhelmed in class and I just needed like a moment, that I could walk down to her office and chat with her. So I would actually do that a lot, and it would help me with my anxiety, just coming and visiting her. And I used to think, like, what a nice person. Oh my God, she's like entertaining my little kid thoughts. But as I got older, I realized I would have these relationships with teachers a lot. I wasn't like the other kids in my age group. I was way smarter than them and somehow able to process things that children don't even bother thinking about, you know? Like now when I have conversations with my daughter, I always expect for her to say something profound to me, or like come to some conclusion about something that when I was her age was obvious for me. But for her, like, she's like a baby, and she's the age now that I was then. So when she's like saying stuff to me that she thinks is so deep, I'll be like, oh, that's great. But I'm like, what? That's what you got out of this? Like, why did you come to this conclusion? That's how I react sometimes. But now I understand why, because that's not normal. It's not normal for an 8-year-old to know that, like, people are reading you, that a mental institution worker is trying to analyze you. It's not normal. It's not normal for little kids to read adults so well, and to process things that are going on around them at the speed that I was. That's not normal. It's not normal for kids to know how to adjust their emotions, like how they're expressing their emotions according to the situation that they're in, and know, like, okay, in this situation, if I cry, it's going to be a problem. Like, little kids don't be thinking about stuff like that. So I think that person, that woman, she was so entranced because she was like, I don't believe that this is a little kid. Like, I can't believe the stuff coming out of her mouth. Wow, that's crazy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We didn't talk about sad things. I know we were talking about nice things. Probably talking about Korea. But I just have that memory of her. I forget her name, but I don't know. I don't know whatever happened to these people. They made an impact on me as a child. Yeah, so in this foster family, overall, like I said, they were good people. But there was this power struggle going on between myself and this daughter, and it wasn't on my end. I wasn't struggling with her for the power, because the only person I knew I had authority over was my sister. And my sister and I always had that relationship, so it was a no-brainer. Like, if I told my sister, okay, that's enough food, let's stop eating, she would just stop eating. If I told my sister, hey, let's dress like this today, and pick out her outfit for her, like, she would have just put it on. That was the kind of relationship that we had. My sister trusted me, and I was always protective over my sister. So if any of them said or did something that I thought, y'all trying to scam her, like, y'all are trying to get over on my sister right now, I would step in and be like, no, don't do that. Don't go along with them on that because they're trying to play you. And she would listen to me. I think this girl felt insulted by the level of trust my sister had in me and the level of authority my sister respected in me, and also that we had this bond of speaking our language to each other that kind of separated us from everybody in the house. And even though my sister wasn't actively speaking Korean to me, occasionally I would still like say things to her in Korean. For the most part, she did understand me. It would just take her a minute to like remember what words meant. So, I think that made them feel some type of way. They would lie on us constantly. Like they would do stuff to get themselves in trouble. Then they would blame us and say, oh, well, those girls made us do it. They started doing it first and we were just following them. Oh, we didn't do it at all. They did that. They would blame us and keep a straight face when they were talking to their mom, especially the older one. The younger one wasn't as bad, but the older one was the ringleader, so the younger siblings would just follow behind her whenever she would do something crazy, you know? Like, I thought she was a sociopath. There was this crazy, like, divide in the household as time went on between my sister and me versus the biological kids in the family. The parents started to get to the point where they could not stay neutral anymore. They were blaming us for the stuff that was going on and actually scolding us right to our face and like saying things that were so hurtful. So it became a hostile environment for me and my sister at this home, and also my self-worth started to decline at this point. Before then, I feel like I didn't have really great self-esteem. I had okay self-esteem. Like, I felt loved, I felt valued, I felt like I belonged to a family unit, you know. But now at this point, I was starting to internally question myself a lot and wonder, like, is all this crazy stuff happening to us because there's something wrong with us? This is like the universe's way of punishing us by breaking up our family and driving us nuts and then putting us with these strangers who don't treat us the way that we should be treated. These are questions that I asked myself, and I just wanted to get out of there. Like, I wanted to go home to be around my mom. And at this point, I feel like the visits had stopped. We didn't have any more visits with my mother. Part of that, I think, was because my mother could not afford to travel to places to see us. She didn't have a license. She had no vehicle. I don't think she had a stable place to live. She had no job. She was trying to get herself together. When a few instances when she could visit us, she had to really like sneak onto public transportation in order to do that. So she was risking a lot. I just feel like the people in the system, they're not really trying to help you. They all have a job to accomplish, and if you aren't just smart enough to figure things out on your own, they're not really going out of their way to help you. I remember my mom saying that she was trying to establish some kind of benefits for herself so that she would have any kind of income. There was a huge, even though my mother is a university graduate, because of her language barrier, nobody recognized her degree. It didn't matter that she had a degree. She could not get a job that was worth anything because she couldn't speak English good enough for people to take her serious. So at this stage, I think my mother was around my age now, and it was like a real struggle for her to try to figure out, like, navigate the world without my dad. She was doing everything on her own. She didn't even have us around anymore to translate for her, which we played a big role in doing that for my mom. So that year that we were in foster care, she was just literally on her own. So it's like everything that was amounting to progress was slowed down for her. The second family, you know, towards the end, I just started to have feelings of animosity towards them. I felt trapped in that house. I felt totally unloved, like we were cared for and that we had superficial things. We had clothes, we had food, but like even the clothes that we got, I remember, damn, that's crazy. I actually remember them having a voucher for clothing for us to, like, I think maybe around school vacations or something like that, like winter break, stuff like that. In Massachusetts, foster families get vouchers for their kids so that they can go clothing shopping when seasons change. I remember her like racking up clothes in the shopping cart that were also for her own kids. So whatever money she would have spent on that voucher for me and my sister, she was splitting part of it with her own kids. And this is why I say a lot of people will get into foster care for the money, because when the perks, they know they can kind of finesse the system so that they're just spending the minimum on these kids who are displaced. It's like, who cares where you came from? Who cares what lifestyle you had before you got here? This is your life now, and you just have to deal with it. There's nothing you can do. So you just have to go along with whatever. So we're like always wearing the same stuff to school. There was an incident I meant to tell you guys about, actually before the second family, when I was still with the first family, they coordinated a birthday party for me when I was turning 9. I remember being at Chuck E. Cheese. I remember getting multiple Barbie dolls, and I remember there were other kids there. I don't know if maybe my sister's foster family's children came too. I just remember my sister. I just vividly remember feeling heartache that this day couldn't last forever. I just felt excitement for getting to see my sister, and then disappointment when I realized the party was coming to an end and then she would have to go back to Wilmington. It was like getting punched in the face. It was like the worst birthday ever, because she wasn't supposed to leave. She was supposed to be with me. And I would have traded every present I got to keep my sister with me. But I couldn't. And I remember feeling complete devastation, depression, and just the sense of like, it's not just, it's unfair. I felt that on that day. I'll never forget that birthday. I don't remember birthdays. Like, I don't know what I did for my birthday last year. That one birthday, I never will forget that birthday. It's so clear in my mind. The feelings that I had, like I said, I don't remember the events. I don't remember what we did. I just know we were at Chuck E. Cheese, but I remember being completely distracted, like trying to be next to my sister the whole time. Like, even if she got up to use the bathroom, I wanted to be with her. That was really traumatizing for me. And so when I went to this new house that my sister had already been staying at, I was happy that my sister was with me, but at the same time I knew at any point they can just separate us whenever they want. We have no control over anything that's happening here. They were buying a house somewhere that was a different neighborhood, and they were gonna move, and then this new baby was gonna come that my foster mother was pregnant with. So they had some changes going on, so I think they were taking a break from foster care. So it worked out that there was a family that was in that local area, had room for me and my sister to come to, so we ended up going to that family's house. That family were Mormons, and what in the hell, like, now I realize, because I have Mormon friends, the Mormon religion, I'm not going to say they're racist, because I don't think that's accurate. I will say they're a little bit biased towards brown people, because there is some belief in the Mormon religion that the darker your skin tone, the more of a curse you have on you, because supposedly God cursed people who he deemed like unfit or something with darker skin. Yeah, that's a thing. They don't talk about this outwardly, but this is a thing in the Mormon religion. The family that we were with, they call themselves Latter-day Saints, but it's the exact same thing as they're Mormons. We were going to church with them, and I just remember, like, every time we'd walk into the building, the whole congregation, it was a massive church, it was huge, everybody staring at us, walking through the aisles to our seats, and like people kept turning around to look at us in the pews and feeling really uncomfortable. Like, I thought they were staring at us because we were foster kids. I don't think so. I think now I'm realizing, no, they were staring at you because you were black. Like, you didn't look like them. I don't know if people knew we were black kids because we looked so different from the average black child. They knew we wasn't white. They knew we wasn't light. We didn't have their skin tone. The irony, too, is that this foster family adopted a set of siblings who were black kids. They loved the daughter. They were so good to the daughter, who was like 5 at the time. The son, who was about 8 at the time. No, he was younger than 8. He had to have been like 6 or 7. Wow, they were assholes to him. I think they abused that boy. Like, I recall seeing my foster mother force him to sleep inside of a baby's crib as a punishment for something he did. I remember her shoving his head into a toilet bowl and like flushing the toilet. I don't know if his face was touching the water, but that's a scary thing to do to a kid. And this kid had some type of developmental issue because he was a little bit slow. and they were treating him like it was stupid. Total different treatment for his sister, who was a complete brat at that time. She was so spoiled. They were so nice to her. The son, who I thought was nice and sweet, and he was very calm. Like, his sister was wild. She was all over the place, couldn't sit still. They only adopted the boy because in order to adopt the daughter, like, they both started off as foster kids in that family, they had to adopt the son. And it showed in the way that they treated him. And the foster family's biological kids, man, he used to pick on the boy all the time. Like, he used to pick on him nonstop, and he thought it was funny as hell. It wasn't. I was, like, traumatized watching this behavior. I was disgusted. I don't think anything really happened to them because they were probably still allowed to have more foster kids since us. And I think I saw them on Facebook a few years ago, and I think they were still part of that family. They still had their last name. People like that are good at hiding it, and they're good at training the children to deny everything. Like, if they got questioned, if they were scared enough, they would just lie. And that woman, what an ass, she would steal our things. She would steal the stuff that the kids came there with while they were at school or something. Like, it wasn't overt. She would act like she was doing laundry, and then she'd bring you back less clothes than what you had in the hamper. And she would steal stuff out of our belongings and hoard them. She would stash them in her basement, label everything in boxes. She would call it the dungeon to keep people from going down to the basement. And I think I like walked halfway down the stairs and like looked like this and saw all the boxes with the labels on them. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, she had like a museum of boxes and boxes of children's belongings down there over the years of like all the foster kids she had. And get this, when we left this family, she insisted on packing our stuff for us. We had like 8 trash bags full of stuff. They felt unusually light. And when we got home and unpacked everything, none of our clothes were in there. There were empty boxes inside of the bag. Boxes, just packaging for our stuff that nothing was inside of the box. This is not the first time this lady did this. Like, clearly this was her MO, and it worked because she had a stash of stuff down there. And I remember telling our caseworker, yo, she gave us a bunch of empty ass boxes. Like, we need our stuff. All the stuff we have. So she got in contact with the lady, and she was like, yeah, I think you put the wrong bags in the car. Like, can you look and see if their stuff is there? Oh yeah, I looked around everywhere. I don't see any stuff that belongs to them. I put everything in there that was theirs. I don't know what you're talking about. Totally got away with this. I was fucking pissed. I told my caseworker every little thing that I remembered that this woman did. She would like ration the food that she gave us. She wouldn't let us eat seconds. Ew, like, people put you in charge of their children. The state licensed you to take care of children, and this is how you act? What the fuck? Like, they loved their dog more than they loved their adopted son. The kids, like I said, the children of that family, they weren't as bad. The daughter, she was really nice to us. She was like 13 at the time, and she was the middle child. There was like a younger sibling, a boy, who was probably 12, and he was the one that would pick on the little black boy. I just remember being at that house, and like, we had a bunk bed in our room. My sister slept on the top bunk. I was on the bottom bunk. I remember hallucinating at night of Korean food. I would see it in front of me. I could smell it, and I would like reach out and try to like eat it, but it wasn't real. Multiple nights I would cry myself to sleep because I was so hungry. Like, I wanted to eat so bad, but I wasn't allowed to eat. And I remember like asking my foster mom, like, what do you get out of this? Why are you a foster mother? Why do you do this? Do you get paid to do this? Like, I remember asking her, and I think she started to suspect that I suspected that something was wrong because she wasn't answering my questions directly. She was being very like ambiguous. Like, I was like, well, how much money do you get for us? And she was like, oh, enough to take care of you. And I'm like, yeah, so like, what is that? Like $50 a week? Like, what is it? That's money for us, right? And she was like, yeah, it's money for you guys. I was like, okay, so like, are you going to spend any of it on us? And she's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, we wear the same clothes to school every day. We don't have any Korean food to eat. Like, our diet is completely different than you guys's. Why don't you spend some of that money to accommodate us? You said that it's for us. So what are you spending the money on that we can see is for us? I don't see any of it. So where is it going? Can you give me some of the money? Can I have like an allowance? She was like, oh no, it doesn't work like that. They give the money to the family. It's not for you guys directly. It's for us to use to take care of you guys. So I'm like, okay, so what are you doing to do that? And she's like, well, You get food. I'm like, she was not answering my questions. I'm 9 years old. I'm asking her this stuff. And I wasn't asking, like, where do babies come from? Like, no, I really wanted to know. She kept changing the subject, talking about something else. I'm like, this lady got a guilty conscience about something. Even back then at 9 years old, you guys, kids are very trusting. Kids tend to go along with what adults say. Like, I had a very certain feeling something ain't right with her. She's nuts. We ended up coming back to my mother at some point. A year had gone by. My mom finally got an apartment in the projects. If you don't know what the projects is, then look it up. We like lived in projects in actually Somerville, so I ended up going back to the neighborhood that I had first moved to when I left Cambridge, and I was so excited that we were back in Somerville because I had really good memories of my first foster family, and I wanted to like go visit them or something. I knew the street that they lived on. It was really close to where my mother had moved, and I do remember going back up to that street with my sister to try to look for them, but I think they might have moved at that point, so they weren't on the street anymore. But I was so excited. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna go see them and let them know that I'm okay, like I'm here. And I got my sister back. I'm gonna show them my sister. That didn't end up happening, but we did make friends with some of the kids on that block, so we would go there and hang out a lot in front of my old foster home. Wow, this was like a little blip in my childhood when I was in America, where it wasn't so much stress and fear and uncertainty. Being back with my mom, we were now wondering how we could get in touch with my dad. At this point, we were like, I'm writing him letters. I'm like, I need to call my dad. I need to talk to him. I would call the house and no one would answer the phone, and then I would write letters, and then when I would get ready to mail them, I'd be like, Mom, can you buy me a stamp? No, don't send it. He's not gonna get the message. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? It's the right address. Like, I know the address. This is correct, Mom. No, don't send it. He won't read it, so just don't even bother sending it. What the hell are you talking about? Why would he not read a letter from me? I would sneak behind her back and call the house. No one would answer the phone. So I was pissed because I'm like, why won't you let me call my father? Finally, I think she just couldn't like keep up the charade anymore, and she just blurted it out. She was like, you can't send him the mail. He's not going to get it because he died. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, Mom, you gotta come up with a better excuse than this. You just don't want me to talk to my dad. And I remember my mother crying and like telling us this in the middle of her cooking dinner, and me and my sister, when we saw her cry, we were like, maybe she's not lying. So we started to cry. We're like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, he died while you guys were in foster care. He had a heart attack. I don't know the details. They didn't even tell me about it until after he was already cremated, already had a funeral. So she was upset that she didn't get to like attend his memorial or anything like that. And she was also pissed that they cremated him. In my dad's side of the family, I think it's just their tradition to cremate. And I think my dad knew that. So apparently he had told my mom, don't let them cremate me no matter what, because when she found out he had gotten cremated, she just felt like he didn't want to die and get cremated, and I can't believe you guys cremated him. Like, how did you guys not know that? But I mean, it wouldn't have really been up to her, because even though she's his wife, everything like financially my dad's family members had taken care of for the expenses of his death. What could she have really done? But like I said, my mom's a fighter. She don't give a damn, so she's gonna tell you how she feels. If you just don't do anything about it, oh well, but she told you. So she was just upset that he had gotten cremated, and then she was talking to us about it, and I just remember like 15 minutes going by, and me and my sister both looking at each other, like our stomachs growling, thinking like, but weren't we supposed to be eating dinner? I don't know. It was just like a surreal experience. Afterwards, it really sunk in, like, wait, he's dead? Like, we could never see him again? I was really sad about it, and just kind of had to accept it. Like, he's already been dead. He didn't just die yesterday. He'd been dead. This time, the whole time we were in foster care, probably, he was dead. And like, I just didn't know. I made myself just kind of get over it, at least outwardly. I learned to like laugh and joke about my dad dying. Like, I used to tell people, that's why I don't say I love you to people, because the last time I talked to him, the thing I said last to him was that I love him, and then before you knew it, he was dead. So I must have cursed him. I don't like to jinx people by telling them I love them. This was a joke I used to tell people when I was like 10 years old, and I thought it was hilarious, but I guess people were like, what the fuck? Like, but I had Asperger's. I didn't know that that was an inappropriate thing to say about someone dying. Like, I just looked at it like, I don't want to be moping around all day long, so I have to figure out a way to laugh about it, otherwise I'm gonna go nuts because there's nothing I can do. I even told myself that he wasn't really dead, he was in hiding because he was such a comedian. I thought, like, he's just probably in Dominican Republic, like, chilling out. He's probably in Brazil with, like, some girl, and he doesn't want my mom to know, so he just told them, tell her I'm dead. My family's just keeping up the charade for him until he decides to come back. That's what I thought. Or he's like running from the IRS. No. As much as I would have wished for that to be true, like the Biggie and Tupac conspiracy theorists were like, no, they're still alive. They're somewhere. That's really what I wanted to believe about my dad, but that wasn't true. I have his ashes here in my house. So, no. Yeah, so that was our adventures of foster care and how I found out that my father died. The worst of it is just starting, so that wasn't even the worst of it. If you have a question you want me to address in a video, leave it in the comments. Subscribe if you feel like it. If not, just bookmark this channel in a way that you'll be able to find it again so you can stay updated on future videos. Bye guys!